Let's get Matt George in here. By the way, for context, reading that Vince McMahon was going 90 miles per hour down the Merritt Parkway. Have you ever been on the Merritt Parkway?
No.
That is absolutely insane.
What's it compared?
The Merritt Parkway, 2 lanes, no shoulders.
Is it like is that Truxell, like back behind Discovery Park? You know, if you're going from is it like that?
Or where
like Chevy's on the river is.
Golden Garden Highway. Imagine that.
That's crazy, bro.
But worse.
Come on, man.
But
what's he doing?
He's a lunatic. He's an absolute lunatic.
Be here after that.
He's missed Hogan. He was like, I'm gonna go join my brother.
Dude really is Teflon.
Man, welcome in, Matt George. Matt, what's up, buddy?
Is this a new angle? Is Stone Cold gonna show up when he's in the hospital, getting his cuts and bruises all bandaged up?
Yeah, I don't think
I got it from here, nurse.
I don't think Austin and McMahon are running any more angles together, but that's just a guess on my part. The question is, are the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors going to run any angles together? I don't know that anything is actually happening, Matt, but it sure seems like they've been the talk of the NBA for the last couple of days. We heard Mark Spears yesterday say on NBA Today that Jonathan Kuminga wants to come to Sacramento. We talked to Mark Spears earlier in today's show. You have been on this story from jump. I believe you're the one who brought this to all of our attention. Seems like a month ago at this point. Have you heard anything? Where are we with this Jonathan Kuminga, Sacramento Kings, Golden State Warriors situation?
So I've checked in on a couple of things. One of them is, because I know it's been a question of if the Kings pulled off the trade, what they would do with DeMar DeRozan. So we can get to that in a little bit. But the last I've checked in, again, it's pretty much nothing has changed. It's a stalemate, as it's been for the last handful of weeks. And from what I understand, like what I've been told is that if there was like odds of if this is happening or not, more than likely it's not happening. Like it just doesn't feel like the Warriors are going to play ball. They don't seem satisfied or interested at all in the 2 concrete offers on the table from the Kings and the Suns. I don't necessarily blame them, nor do I blame either franchise, but mainly the Sacramento Kings out of the Kings and Suns for going, okay, then find something better, or best of luck to you to figure out the circumstance, figure out the situation. I think the Kings, while a lot can change in a year, I think the Kings are happy to play the long game if that's what they have to play. I reported weeks ago that the Kings are willing to walk away before overpay, and they've stayed consistent with that. Perry is sticking to his guns, and as are the Warriors to some extent, and credit to them. But the Warriors are still the ones that are going to have the mess to clean up at the end of the day, and the Sacramento Kings are either going to move on to the next thing or play with the time that is on their side temporarily and go from there. So not a lot has changed. We get little bits of information. I was told that the meeting with Kuminga that the Kings had went really well. Mark Spears' report of Kuminga wanting to come to Sacramento echoes that. I have a lot of people asking, and including Warriors fans, like, why in the world would Kuminga want to come to Sacramento? I can't think of a much better place for him to instantly become a starter, instantly get the green light, have an opportunity to be the guy. If he's unhappy in Golden State because he was kind of put into a box of a role player that they needed to maximize Steph Curry in that window, which, by the way, I don't blame the Warriors for doing that. Everything the Warriors do should be focused on trying to open up a title window one more time for Steph Curry. So I don't blame the Warriors for doing that, but clearly Kuminga feels a certain type of way about it. He's going to get more than enough opportunity in Sacramento to be the guy, even with LaVine and DeRozan and Sabonis here. But so it makes perfect sense to me why Kuminga would want to come to Sacramento, why the Kings would be very interested in going out and getting him. I said over the phone with you guys yesterday, make no mistake about it, the Kings absolutely want him. And that includes members of the coaching staff. That includes Doug Christie, from what I'm told. It would be very, very interested and very open to having Kuminga on this roster. But again, they're not willing to be the first ones to budge, and they're not willing to bow, I guess, to the Warriors' demands and the inclusion of Keon Ellis or anything of that sort in these talks and in this deal. So nothing has changed, while it feels like a lot has changed in many ways. And here we are, just kind of twiddling our thumbs, waiting for either the domino to fall or for the offseason to run out and us to get to training camp.
Let's stay, because I want to hear the DeMar stuff, but let's stay right there where you talked about how much Doug Christie, the front office, is high on Jonathan Kuminga and would like to have him on the team. Has that changed at all? And I mean that in a positive way. Like, after meeting with him, did they come away feeling even more confident in their stance that, like, we want him here? Or did they learn something new while they met with him that kind of had them like, no, I think this really would work? Or is it just the same it's been since the initial interest in Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, Casey, I don't know that definitively or specifically enough to answer that. I do understand or have the belief or know that the Kings have been very eager to jump on the opportunity of acquiring Jonathan Kuminga since the beginning, right? They've always looked at it as an opportunity that, as you and Jeff pointed a lot last week, right? So these opportunities don't come around too often. And it's hard to let those opportunities pass, especially for a franchise like Sacramento, where they don't necessarily always have free agents lining up to sign with them. So the Kings have recognized the opportunity that's in front of them, but part of that opportunity also comes with the circumstance that the Warriors are in. And you can turn an opportunity into something that's a negative if you are impatient or overreact to the situation. And that's what I don't think Perry's willing to do is, hey, this opportunity's in front of us, but it's not such a can't miss opportunity. It's not like the Lakers' opportunity of acquiring Luka Doncic, right? That's an opportunity that never comes around and you can't possibly say no to. You have to take it. That's not what this Kuminga opportunity is. It's something that might not ever happen again for Perry, but it's not something that like puts the Kings into any kind of title window or guarantees them a star of the future going forward. There are definitely question marks with Kuminga, and should be concerns, I think, on all sides of if Kuminga gets his way and comes to Sacramento and gets the green light and starts averaging 24 points per game, but the Kings aren't a very good basketball team. How is that any different from, and I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but how is that any different from what Jordan Poole does in Washington? Right? It's numbers without a winning impact. So I think, to answer your question, Casey, I think the Kings have always been very interested in the opportunity of acquiring Kuminga. I think the meeting cemented the interest on both sides, but the plan of how to bring Kuminga in has never really wavered or changed because of the Warriors circumstance. And that's where we've pretty much been.
Matt George, who appears to be broadcasting live from James Ham's internet connection with us, talking.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
With Jonathan Kuminga. I'm just kidding, man. I mean, I'm not, but I am. You mentioned that this doesn't open a championship window, and that fair, fine, accurate. But I think there's an argument, and I'd be willing to make it, that it does change the outlook, or at least it changes my outlook on what this team might look like for the next 2 or 3 years should you make this acquisition of Jonathan Kuminga.
I think that's 100% fair. Like, it gives you, rather than waiting, let's say 2 years for DeRozan and Levine's contracts to run out to then add a new top prospect to build around, you bring him in right now. And you use the next 2 years with these contracts to implement him and build around him and get those 2 years of context. And then once those contracts come up and the books free up a little bit, now you have a little more wiggle room and space to either add on to it if it's working and you feel confident in going forward with it, or pivot and move in a different direction, right? Plus, the Kings own all their first round picks. So regardless of how good or bad the Kings are over the next 2 years, as of now, Perry will also be drafting 2 new first rounders to add to that mix, or more than that or less than that, depending upon what he decides to do in trades and moves. So like that's part of the opportunity that I was talking about. If you can go out and get that now and start that process now, then the Kings are obviously wanting to jump on that and are chomping at the bit to do that. But it all comes back to, because of the circumstance that the Warriors are in, the Kings don't feel a need to overpay. And I think it speaks to kind of the old school, maybe stubbornness of Scott Perry, but something that's been lacking here in Sacramento in their front office in recent years is Perry's not going to be pushed around. Perry's not going to allow the Sacramento market and the Sacramento tax and small market mentality to change how he's going to operate and pursue Kuminga. And again, I just think that's where we're at. Is the Kings love the opportunity, love the player. He fits a need. But if the circumstance is that he doesn't need to, the Kings don't need to overpay to make it happen, and are willing to run the risk of things changing in a year, but potentially going out and getting him an unrestricted free agency next summer, if that's what they have to do, that is more worth it to the Kings, I feel, at this point, than including a piece like Keon Ellis, who you put it perfectly earlier in the week. I'm not trading you a prospect that I want for a prospect that you don't want, right? Like the Warriors can't expect that, and the Kings shouldn't be expected to give them that.
Yeah, for sure. You said you had, I don't know, maybe some information or talk to some people about what that would look like if the Kings were able to pull off the Kuminga deal, what that might look like for DeMar DeRozan. What's some of the things you're hearing with that?
Yeah, so there's the speculation that, okay, if you bring in Kuminga, then maybe there's something in place to move on from DeRozan. And I don't get any indication that that's the case. In fact, like I believe, and I've been told, that the Kings would first ask him to come off the bench before they'd want to move on from him. I've gotten repeatedly a firm indication over the course of this offseason that Perry wants DeMar here, that Perry views DeMar as a valuable asset for this team going forward. I think he views DeMar as someone that can't just, not only will help them win basketball games right now, but will also help establish that culture that they're looking to establish. Now, I have question marks about, like, how does he help establish that defensive culture or things of that nature? It's the same questions that I would have with Zach LaVine to some extent. But the professional that DeMar DeRozan is, I think Scott Perry highly, highly values. So I basically, all indications point to the Kings would not look to move on from DeMar if they brought Kuminga in. They would ask him to come off the bench and see how he handled that question. But I would not expect any DeMar DeRozan trade anytime soon.
Man, there's so many different layers to this, Matt. Are you've repeated that you don't think Scott Perry has to overpay, and this is you have been at the center of a couple of conversations regarding leverage, and we ask everyone who will join us, and I think everyone has a different answer as to who has the leverage here. I think it's a perfectly fair response to say no one has the leverage, and probably everybody feels like they're in a bad place. Kings, obviously, there's a player that they want, but the Warriors are asking for more than they're willing to give. And then you have the situation where Jonathan Kuminga doesn't want to play on a qualifying offer. He obviously wants to cash in. This is the moment that he's waited his entire basketball life for, and it's not happening because of the team he was drafted to and the way the market has shaken out this year. Is this just a game where everyone is in a fight and no one really has any momentum on their side?
It feels that way. It feels like nobody has the ace up their sleeve, like the final blow to get this thing across the finish line because of their own circumstances and their own stubbornness to some extent. I mean, Kuminga holds a lot of power because of his circumstance, but that's more between Kuminga and the Warriors. The Warriors, with restricted free agency, have the final say. And so if anybody holds the most cards, it's Golden State, I suppose. But it doesn't mean the cards are any good, right? Like you can have the hand, but it's not a good hand. And I think that's the bluff that the Kings are willing to call. That's what the Kings are willing to call. That's what the Kings are willing to deal with, is like, if you walk away, we're willing to watch you try and make sense of this mess and figure this mess out as best as possible. So I don't know if that answers your question completely, D'Lo, but I think everybody feels like they're in a confident position to end up happy, I guess. And the only one that has the most leverage, but also has the most to lose, is Golden State. And they're willing to play the long game, I guess. It's like a Game of Thrones almost for this player now. And there's so many layers and it's gotten so complicated, but I know it's clear Sacramento has a line. Kuminga seems to have a line, and the Warriors seem to have a line. And the question is, who crosses that line first, or who budges first? And I don't think it's going to be Sacramento.
Yep. Follow that up with something real quick, Casey. You talk about lines for Kuminga. One thing that I do think we did learn this week, it requires a little it requires some assumptions, but I do feel comfortable in this. Shams Charania reported that there were multiple proposals made to Jonathan Kuminga and his team that peaked at 4 years, $90 million, with Phoenix, or I think he said 4 years, near $90 million, with Phoenix making the most lucrative offer. That leads me to believe that 4 near 90 number came from Phoenix, and Sacramento at least has to be in the vicinity of that number. And we kind of set it at perhaps 75 and upwards might be at the number that they're at in terms of their offer to Jonathan Kuminga and his team. If we go 475, 480, to me, that signifies a really, really strong interest in a player. And that's not just a passing of, there's a situation we might be able to take advantage of. That feels like real interest in a player being a building block of what you're trying to do moving forward.
Yeah, again, I all signs that I've gotten to point to the Kings really, really want Kuminga. They want him. Like this is something that they've been looking for. It gives them a start towards the future right away. Gives them a building block right away. In many ways, Kuminga, especially being as young as Kuminga is what the Sacramento Kings have been looking for and waiting for. And the opportunity like this doesn't always come around. So to me, when I hear that the meeting between both sides went really well, and then Mark Spears is saying Kuminga wants to come to Sacramento, it's not just because of the opportunity that Sacramento presents, it's because of the money that Sacramento was willing to put on the table for Kuminga too. Obviously, that's a factor in Kuminga's decision. So I think Kuminga feels that the price that the Kings are offering is obviously fair. The opportunity in Sacramento is not what it was in Golden State, which is ultimately what he's looking for. And the Kings feel that this is our best chance at getting our most realistic chance of getting what we've been looking for a while, even if Perry hasn't been here the whole time, getting a wing, an athlete, and a building block going forward. But it's not so appealing, or it's not so, and I feel like I'm just making this point over and over and over again because this is what I keep hearing. It's not so great and so like foolproof that the Kings are willing to include something to the value of Keon Ellis or Keegan Murray, of course, or a player of that stature to go out and get it. It's not, Kuminga is not so perfect and so needed in Sacramento that is like, you know what? Forget it. Well, Warriors, fine. We'll give you what we want because we really want Kuminga here. Sacramento doesn't feel like they're at that point yet.
For someone like yourself and others who are so, I was going to say despondent. I don't know if that's the word, but uninterested in this team because of their lack of future. Would you feel some type of way if they let this opportunity get passed? Like you have, this is, I've been saying a little bit, this is kind of what a lot of the Kings fans are asking for. Have a future, have a direction. And Kuminga would be a big part of that potentially being the case. And if they decided to move on from that, and now they're back to that team that you think has no hope or no future currently, would you be a little disappointed by that?
To some extent, yes, but I'm also, I don't know if it's a pessimistic view on Kuminga or it's just I need to wait and see. I don't think Kuminga changes much for the Sacramento Kings next season. I don't. I think he gives them a piece to be excited about going forward, but I don't think the Kings are a Jonathan Kuminga away from winning a playoff series or opening any sort of championship window, and I don't think the Kings view him as that way either. It gives me something, and I think gives Kings fans something to be a little more interested in, the same way we're interested in, can Keegan take that next step? What does Nick Clifford look like? I put Kuminga into that category, but he's still going to be playing with Zach LaVine, who should be taking the most shots per game. That's what you pay him to do. And DeMar DeRozan, again, I believe would be on this team no matter what, whether it's coming off the bench or as a starter. You know, DeMar DeRozan's going to get his and need to get his. Domantas Sabonis is still going to need to be impactful offensively in addition to being the playmaker and rebounder that he is. So I don't view Kuminga as such a significant acquisition or difference maker to where losing him feels like a disaster or feels like, man, that this is something the Kings can't recover from and they might not ever get that opportunity again. I do think Kuminga is a very, very talented player, an exciting player, but I don't think Perry, it's a player, I don't think Kuminga is a player that Perry needs to go all in for, and not even all in is not the right term, needs to go over the top for right away this early into his tenure. And I'd feel still okay about where the Kings were going with Perry if they decided to walk away or if this deal didn't happen because they weren't willing to include Keon Ellis, who I do believe is part of the long-term plan here in Sacramento.
If they said Malik Monk, the Golden State Warriors, I'm sorry. If the Golden State Warriors say Malik Monk and an unprotected first-round pick gets this done right now, would you do it? Let me be more specific. An unprotected 2026 first-round pick.
Oof. So next year's first-round pick unprotected.
Yep.
No. No, I wouldn't do that.
2027.
I don't think the Kings are going to be very good even with Kuminga over the next 2 years.
I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy. You have a team with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis. Now you got Jonathan Kuminga, Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis. You got these guys on your team, and you don't think that team can win you 40 some odd games. If that's the case, you're in a lot more trouble than acquiring Jonathan Kuminga.
I'll also say this real quick. There is also an aspect. I'm not saying overplay your hand or outbid yourself, but I don't know if you can necessarily just give nothing you want in a trade and expect for it to happen. Like, Kings don't want to give no players they want or draft picks.
Well, San Antonio did it a couple months ago.
Where's Monty when you need him? But like, I would think when you're doing some trades, if I was on the Warriors side, I'd be like, you got to give us something. Like, you don't want Sarge or Carter or this conditional pick. You're just gonna give us nothing.
I mean, you're getting a former lottery pick and a first rounder if the reports to be true or that it's heavily protected. I see your point too, and I see the Warriors' point in all that. But again, I don't think the Sacramento Kings need to feel like they need to include an unprotected first rounder for a player that, again, the Golden State Warriors don't even want, and he doesn't want to be there. And there's a good chance that he'll sign a qualifying offer and then not be there and be available for signing next summer. So I know a lot can change in a year, but this is how the Kings are thinking.
ESPN just published an article with the top 10 players to watch during their sophomore season. Does anyone want to guess who was not on the list? Anybody? Does anybody want to guess who wasn't on that list? Okay, good. Matt George, Locked On Kings, ABC 10. Great work, man. Keep following this, man. Don't tell us there's nothing to talk about, because we're gonna find a way to talk about this damn story. It's the 100%. Only thing happening. Well, it's the only thing happening in the NBA right now. That's gonna change in the next couple of days. But we'll deal with that stuff tomorrow. Matt, we appreciate you. As always, we're going to head over to 102.5 for those who want to join us. We got tickets to see Ty Dolla $ign, Wale, and Jacquees that we're going to be giving away in the 5 o'clock hour. If not, we'll see you back here tomorrow, beginning with the Insiders at 10 a.m. on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Vamos, Trey Lance.